Somewhere at the bottom edge of America, the land gives up trying to be land. It softens into something without a name, not water, not earth, not coastline in any sense a map can honestly represent, just a breathing, shifting membrane between what exists and what is disappearing. Like a sentence spoken in a language that is itself vanishing, the ground here says something urgent and beautiful before it dissolves. This is Louisiana's swamp country. The world assumes these are forgotten places, abandoned to poverty and isolation, waiting to disappear. The next 17 minutes will show you something else. How forgetting can become a form of freedom, and how people who live where the land is dissolving have built something more permanent than solid ground ever could. Drop a comment and let me know where in the world you are watching from right now. Dawn arrives in Lafourche Parish, not as light but as sound. Crab traps hauled through dark water, shrimp boat diesels warming before sunrise, the slap of water against hulls not dry-docked in living memory. The air at 5 in the morning sits heavy enough to wear. 78 degrees already. Humidity condensing on every metal surface like the bayou is reclaiming anything that holds still. Along Bayou Lafourche, a waterway locals call the longest street in the world, Leonard Cheremy begins his morning the way his father did, and his grandfather before that. He checks the water level against a cypress stump, serving as his family's tide gauge since 1931. He no longer needs to read the carved marks. He feels the difference in his knees stepping onto the dock, knows by the pitch of his boat whether yesterday's rain pushed salinity north or south. Louisiana Highway 1 runs parallel to the bayou for 143 miles, the only road connecting offshore oil workers to the mainland. $14 billion in oil and gas infrastructure depends on this single two-lane strip of asphalt that floods during moderate storms and closes for weeks. The state has spent over $300 million elevating portions of it, a highway on stilts, rising on concrete pillars above the marsh it cannot trust. The people along Highway 1 do not experience the road as infrastructure connecting them to America. They experience America as something that occasionally visits by way of the road. When it floods, they do not feel trapped. They feel returned to the way things were before the road existed, when every family was a boat, every journey a negotiation with water, every neighbor someone reached by knowing which channels ran deep enough in which season. The light at Grand Isle arrives slanted and salt-stained, filtered through air photographers call the Gulf Glow. Brown pelicans, once nearly extinct from debt poisoning, now numbering over 40,000 breeding pairs, patrol the shoreline in formations local fishermen read like weather instruments. Delphine Santoni has operated the same bait shop since 1987. She has rebuilt it 5 times. Not renovated, rebuilt from the foundation up, after Hurricanes Betsy, Andrew, Katrina, Gustav and Ida each erased her livelihood from the map. The current structure sits on 16-foot pilings, its electrical panel at head height, inventory in waterproof bins designed to float. She designed these features herself after her insurer dropped her, after FEMA offered a buyout she declined, after her children urged her to move to Baton Rouge. Grand Isle is 7 miles long and averages less than 8 feet above sea level. Its population has dropped from nearly 2,000 in the 1960s to approximately 1,000 today, and nearly everyone remaining is over 50. The young leave. The old stay for reasons they communicate not in words, but in glances, in the way they pronounce street names appearing on no GPs, in the shared memory of how the island looked before Deepwater Horizon coated their marshes in crude. Flood insurance alone can exceed $15,000 annually, and many properties cannot obtain coverage at any price. Yet land transfers continue within extended families at prices suggesting buyers are purchasing something other than real estate. They are purchasing a position in an unwritten registry, membership in a community that has made stubbornness a civic virtue. Why do they stay? Up close, the question inverts. Why would they leave a place where shrimp seasons structure the calendar, where storm names are the only historical dates that matter, where knowledge of which oyster beds survived, which hurricane represents inherited wealth more durable than any bank account? The answer lies 90 miles northwest, where the swamp generates a product most Americans have never seriously considered. The American alligator is Louisiana's signature resident, close to 2 million animals statewide, farmed and managed under one of the most successful wildlife programs in the country after near extinction from unregulated hunting decades ago. Egrets and herons stalk the shallows in near total stillness before striking, while bald eagles and ospreys, increasingly common again after decades of decline, patrol the open marsh for fish. Louisiana's bird checklist runs past 470 species, one of the richest totals of any American state, fed by its position on the Mississippi Flyway, the migratory superhighway used by billions of birds each year. The roseate spoonbill flashes pink through marsh grass. The anhinga swims with only its snake like neck above water, earning the local name water turkey. And the brown pelican, the state bird, stands as a living symbol of the wetlands collapse and recovery alike. Below the surface, crawfish anchor an entire seasonal economy and cuisine, alongside gar, catfish, blue crab, and white shrimp, moving between fresh and saltwater with the season. Easy to overlook but locally cherished, barred owls calling back and forth at dusk in a rhythm locals render as Who Cooks For You. 9 banded armadillos rustling through underbrush at night, and mink and river otters slipping along the banks at first light. Near the coast, bottlenose dolphins move through brackish channels close enough to spot from a fishing boat. And West Indian manatees occasionally wander in from Florida waters, a rare but growing sighting. The signature spectacle arrives each winter, when hundreds of thousands of migratory waterfowl descend on the southwest marshes in numbers vast enough that a single skein taking flight can blot out the sky. Midday in Henderson Swamp means shadow. The cypress and tupelo canopy filters the sun into greenish half-light, and the air drops 10 degrees the moment your boat enters the tree line. Water moves so slowly it appears still, broken only by the patient eyes of alligators who have learned that boat motors mean tourists, and tourists sometimes mean food. René Daigle has run crawfish traps here for 43 years. His father ran them before him. His son helps now, though the son also works weekends at an Amazon distribution center in Lafayette, hedging bets René understands and will not discuss. The family's harvest has declined nearly 40% since the 1990s. Drought years, invasive species, Chinese farmed crawfish capturing the lower market. What remains is a premium product commanding prices 3 times higher than farmed alternatives, sold to New Orleans restaurants, presenting them as luxury ingredients to tourists who have never pictured this swamp. Henderson Swamp sits within the Atchafalaya Basin, the largest river swamp in the United States. Over 1 million acres of wetland containing an estimated 40% of Louisiana's remaining coastal marsh. The Corps of Engineers maintains locks and levees preventing the Mississippi from diverting through this basin, a geological process that would naturally occur every 1,000 years and would, if permitted, turn New Orleans into a coastal backwater. Preventing it costs hundreds of millions annually. Louisiana's wetlands provide an estimated $5 billion annually in storm protection services. Every mile of healthy marsh absorbs roughly 3 inches of storm surge. Since 1930, Louisiana has lost nearly 2,000 square miles of this buffer, an area larger than Delaware. The swamp is not wilderness, it is infrastructure, delivering storm attenuation at a fraction of a concrete seawall's cost. Rene does not think in storm protection valuations. He thinks in traplines his grandfather established, in cypress trees used as navigation markers for 4 generations, in the flavor of crawfish fattened on wild rice grass versus commercial feed. That value cannot be measured because it does not transfer. It ends with him unless his son decides the distribution center is not the safer bet. That tension plays out most visibly 40 miles south, where an entire language is making its last stand. Morning light in Breaux Bridge carries the amber quality of towns built on slow rivers, the Bayou catching early sun, throwing it back in shimmers across 19th century facades. The air smells of chicory coffee, something frying in lard, the green scent of water hyacinth choking the upper bayou despite every eradication effort. Mavis is 63. She learned the language from grandparents beaten in school for speaking it, who passed it to her secretly, a contraband inheritance. The immersion program she works within has enrolled over 5,000 students since the 1980s. Children learn to conjugate verbs and recite poems. What they cannot learn in a classroom is the cadence of a language developed by people who measured time by shrimp migrations. The grammar transfers. The grammar is not the language. What survived was not the complete language, but something legislation could not reach. A way of cooking, dancing, reading water and sky that required no French vocabulary to practice. That survival is most visible 50 miles southeast, where practical necessity and cultural memory have merged at the edge of what remains. Sunset in Cocodrie extends nearly 2 hours, the Gulf spreading flat in every direction, refusing to release the light. The air at dusk carries salt marsh smell and distant diesel exhaust from shrimp boats following channels that shifted since morning. 74 degrees at midnight, humidity unchanged, the kind of air that makes sleep feel like submersion. The Louisiana University's Marine Consortium research station here functions as both laboratory and demonstration of this journey's central argument. Scientists study the phenomenon threatening to consume their workspace, coastal land loss, saltwater intrusion, the drowning of an ecosystem that extended 60 miles further into the Gulf within living memory. The station sits on pilings engineered for Category 3 strikes. Researchers have evacuated before every major storm since 1979, returning to measure what the water removed. The people of Cocodrie are not waiting for that investment. They are running immediate arithmetic, whether this house justifies new pilings, whether this boat has another season, whether the child showing aptitude for the water should be encouraged toward it or redirected toward work with a dry commute. Neither group asking that question is wrong. 120 miles northwest, in a community official maps struggle to acknowledge that arithmetic produces a third answer, refusing the binary of staying and leaving.
Morning along the Mississippi arrives slowly, the river turning silver as towboats push barges through the current and ships move toward the Gulf. Along the levee, Louisiana begins another ordinary day beside a river that has spent thousands of years shaping the land. The Mississippi is more than a river here. It is the reason much of Louisiana exists in its present form. For centuries, it carried sediment south from across North America, building the delta and creating the land where communities eventually settled. New Orleans grew beside it because the river connected the interior of the continent to the Gulf. Today, barges carry grain, petroleum, and industrial cargo, while tugboats guide ships through one of America's most important transportation corridors. But the river that created the land has always threatened the people living on it. Levees now separate communities from the water, keeping the Mississippi within its engineered channel. Farther north, the old river control structure regulates the connection between the Mississippi and Atchafalaya Basin, preventing the river from shifting toward a shorter route to the Gulf. The contradiction is everywhere. The river built the delta, yet controlling it has changed the natural flow of sediment into the wetlands. Louisiana protects its cities while the coast continues to disappear beyond them. By sunset, the Mississippi reflects the fading sky. A towboat moves downstream, carrying another load toward the Gulf, while New Orleans begins another evening behind its levees. The city was built because of this river. It survives by negotiating with it. The Mississippi keeps moving. Louisiana keeps adapting.
Evening settles over New Orleans as a physical loosening, heat releasing its grip, live oaks throwing long shadows across streets averaging 6 feet below sea level, air acquiring movement now, carrying river sediment and restaurant kitchens, and something flowering that resists identification. Musicians warm up on gallery porches. Second-line rehearsals carry 4 blocks through open air. This is a place that has spent 300 years arguing against every rational case for its own non-existence and winning every round so far. The hurricane protection system encircling the city cost over $14 billion following Katrina. Levees, floodwalls and pumps certified to withstand a storm with a 1% annual probability of occurrence. That formulation contains an honest acknowledgement the system will eventually be exceeded. It does not promise safety. It documents a chosen level of acceptable risk. That perimeter addresses only the surge arriving from outside. It does not address the land subsiding at ½ an inch per year in vulnerable neighborhoods. It does not address the wetland buffer shrinking from 60 miles of storm attenuation to approximately 30 within living memory. It does not address the Mississippi River held in its current course by the old river control structure, an aging facility the Corps of Engineers classifies as among the most critical infrastructure in the nation. If it fails, the Mississippi completes its natural diversion into the Atchafalaya Basin, and New Orleans becomes what it was before French colonial ambition imposed a different arrangement on the landscape. None of this is concealed. It circulates in planning documents and newspaper coverage that residents absorb with calibrated detachment, acknowledging the numbers without allowing them to restructure immediate decisions. The immediate pressures, rent, employment, the pull of a place producing belonging no other American city has replicated, consistently outweigh long-range probabilities. This is not denial, it is triage. The people of New Orleans know what Delphine Santoni in her rebuilt bait shop knows, what Renee Daigle checking crawfish traps knows, what the elders of Isle de Jean-Charles who refused relocation know. Permanence has never been a feature of geography. The question a place poses is not whether the ground is stable indefinitely. The question is whether this particular ground, with its textures and histories and sounds, is worth inhabiting fully for as long as possible. In the French Quarter, in a bar operating continuously since 1772, a brass plate records flood high water marks from every significant event since the building opened. The customers drinking beneath those marks are not performing indifference. They are raising something towards survivors that made all subsequent survival possible. There is a word for the disposition making that ritual coherent, carried in from the French speakers who built this city in the wrong place on purpose. It becomes fully legible only at one more location, where the argument this journey has been building finally reaches the ground it was always moving toward. This is where the full argument arrives. Across this coast, embedded in the practice of people who build on ground that subsides, who speak languages that contract, who rebuild what storms remove with the efficiency of those who have always understood that the building is the point and not the building's permanence, there is a word. It is lâcher. Its dictionary translation from Louisiana French is simply to release, or to let go. That translation is accurate and completely insufficient. In actual use, across the bayous and barrier islands this journey has traversed, lâcher names the action performed with a crab trap when the tide runs wrong, with a dock line when storm surge arrives faster than any tie-down can resist, with a house when holding it costs more than the thing is worth. It is not the vocabulary of defeat. It is the vocabulary of precision, the identification of the exact moment when releasing the thing that cannot be held is not failure, but the only intelligent response available. The island has settled that with the finality of open water. The question is what travels. Whether the knowledge Renee Daigle carries in his hands will reach his son before it becomes unreachable. Whether the language Mavis Doucette teaches will find ground hospitable enough to take root in some of her students. The pelicans working the water here do not recognize they are hunting above a place people once called home. Their navigation adjusts as the geography adjusts, neither mourning closed channels nor celebrating new ones, recalibrating toward the water that is actually there, in the season actually occurring. The water rises, the birds adjust. The people of Louisiana's swamp country, with 3 centuries of practice in exactly this motion, do the same. question worth sitting with, as the last light flattens across what remains of Point Au Fer, is whether the rest of us will have learned anything from watching them before we need to know it ourselves. The shell crunches once underfoot. The island goes quiet. The water takes another inch